Hello and welcome to Your Broken Galaxy. I am Broken. Today I want to talk about the Battle of Coruscant. Let me start by saying the animated TV show Star Wars Clone Wars was great. Not the CG show called The Clone Wars, but the 2D animated show called Clone Wars, minus the. Check it out to see what the Battle of Coruscant looked like immediately prior to the opening of episode 3. I'm specifically dealing with episodes 23, 24, and 25 of the TV show and Revenge of the Sith. So, to start, right, Yoda is like meditating in the council chamber and then suddenly turns around to see hundreds of starfighters and half a dozen landing craft coming down. Like, this is a major offensive on a world with like 1 trillion people. Mace is flying around trying to shoot down literally hundreds of starfighters, and even if he is perfectly firing on every occasion, the number of shots being fired by the fighters would just cause catastrophic destruction. Like, you can see missiles and laser bolts just hitting buildings. And when they finally get into space, instead of flying down in the atmosphere among the buildings, you can see there are hundreds of capital ships, and there is no kind of battle formation at all. There's a couple of decent YouTubers that actually break down battles and tactics of Star Wars, but this battle is just utter chaos. No formations, no lines. It is just ships sporadically placed amidst one another. So Sase Tin ends up getting on board a capital ship, and a clone is like, the ship is lost. And like, yeah, there's a little bit of smoke coming from the ship, but it isn't nearly badly as damaged as some of the others we see in the show, and the movies for that matter. It is still flying, but old Hornface is like, let's get a new ship. To which he and 100% of the crew of the ship he was on are just like, crowd into a hangar and jump towards a separatist ship in space. And you think, okay, that's kind of cool. But like, what about the ship they just left? It's a Venator-class starship. That's just going to crash into the planet. Do you know how big one of those things are? They are huge. So as the clone troopers are just floating over, the turbo lasers are firing at them. Turbo lasers. Massive guns designed to breach the hull of capital ships are firing on the clone troopers. And then, when the clone troopers land on the ship, the turbo lasers point down and shoot the very ship to which they are attached. This is insane! Anyway, Palp Daddy is just drinking tea in his office during this engagement, so 3 Jedi, a couple dozen clone troopers, and a few Senate guard burst into his office and try to evacuate them. Then Grievous comes in by himself and poses ominously. I mean, why didn't every single clone trooper just start simultaneously firing at him? Anyway, the group of people that came to save the Chancellor was, as I said, Jedi, Senate Guard, and clone troopers. You know who didn't show up? The Red Guard. I mean, these guys have one job: to protect the Chancellor, and when the battle for Coruscant comes, they aren't even there. Like, they are alive at this point. We can clearly see them at the end of episode 2 on the balcony behind Palps. So the Jedi grab Palps and tell everybody else to kill Grievous, which they, of course, try, but it is a total massacre. A massacre that shows Grievous as killing dozens of men, none of which, not a single one, happened to be a Red Guard. I mean, one job, come on! But anyway, that's none of my business. So Grievous ends up getting Palpatine, and Obi-Wan and Anakin get called back to Coruscant, which is where Revenge of the Sith starts off. They're flying their tiny little Jedi starfighters to get to Palpatine. The thing is, they know which ship he is on. They know that Grievous and Palpatine are both on the ship called the Invisible Hand. It's possible they didn't know Dooku was on board, but the most important thing is they knew Palpadon was. They have the fight with Dooku, he dies. And then the movie very clearly shows that Republic ships are just blasting away at the Invisible Hand. Why? Why would they be firing at the ship that the Supreme Chancellor is being held captive on? I mean, if the President of the United States gets captured and is on an enemy aircraft carrier, the U.S. military isn't going to start bombing that aircraft carrier. But that is exactly what the Republic does. They have the whole fight with Grievous, and the ship starts going down. We get to see in the movie that the ship lands in what looks like might be a safe place to land. Like, there wouldn't be any harm to civilians, at least, for the ship that Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Palpatine are on. But that leads me to my last point. The incredible amount of carnage from this battle would have been absolutely devastating to Coruscant. We can see that there are hundreds, possibly thousands of capital ships, meaning that there are hundreds or even possibly millions of fighters in space, not to mention the sizable ground forces that landed at as a distraction to capture Palpatine. All those ships blowing up in space, from the small ones to the big ones, would have been raining down debris onto Coruscant. Like, people would be walking by, and then suddenly a wing of a vulture droid would land on them. Or look out their window and see a Venator class just land on top of the skyscraper next to them. They would have cost something like in the trillions to quadrillions of dollars range, and left millions, possibly billions, dead. But as soon as it's over, Palpatine is celebrating with the politicians and Anakin's all happy. Anyway, I guess that's the Battle of Coruscant.
Well, that is my video for today. I do hope that you enjoyed it, as always. If you guys have recommendations for video ideas, whether they are what-if scenarios, and honestly that is overwhelmingly what you guys suggest, or if it's just you want to hear my thoughts on a specific Star Wars thing. Granted, I have not read all the books, so there are some things I might not be able to catch, or some of those books I read like 20 years ago. But let me know, and I'll see what I can do. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and all that garbage.